This talk is sponsored by Decentology. Decentology is the innovative company behind the Hyperverse, the open, composable smart contracts marketplace that makes it easy for developers to build Web3 apps without writing a single line of smart contract code. Learn more at decentology.com.
Hi everyone, my name's Yuri. I'm coding Yuri on Twitter, and this is actually my first conference I'm ever speaking at, so I'm very nervous, and I feel like I'm gonna fuck up big time. But you learn from those stuff. So let's get started. A little background about me. I learned how to code for the first time a little bit over a year ago. Yeah, and you know, I have no technical background. I didn't even. I'm a high school dropout. I have a background in anything. Um, but yeah, and I thought at first I wasn't doing any content creation, but while I was learning, I didn't want to take any notes, and I found MDM to be very stressful. So I was like, what? Who the fuck understands this shit? How would a beginner read MDN when there's a lot of technical jargon? So that's when I started creating content. Like, I made it my goal to understand something like a programming concept in MDN or some shit like that, and then be like, okay, I'm gonna try to explain this in the simplest words possible, in simplest way possible, and I'm gonna do it for me. Cause I didn't know, I didn't know how to grow an audience. I didn't know people were even gonna look at my shit, but I did it for me. And that way you're also kind of like solidifying your knowledge, like, cause you're trying to teach it to someone else, and you're trying to really understand it. So it was also a way to solidify my own knowledge. And that's how my content creation journey started. It was through Twitter, and I always, every time I didn't know something, every time I didn't understand something, I created content about it. And yeah, so it was mostly, shit I struggled with, my learning journey in general. I have a very weird background. I used to sell feed pics. So yeah, that's another story. Um, and yeah, it's mostly those stuff like that. Oh, and especially I also, really talked about my struggles and how bad my code was. And I don't know why, but people really resonated with that. But yeah, so, people who've been following me on Twitter, they know that recently I've been doing coffee chats from the 100 devs cohort. And coffee chats is just a way of networking that Leon forces us to do. He's helping us network, and I've been helping others to get their coffee chats done. And it was so crazy because I put like a lot of time slots, because I was thinking like, oh, there's gonna be people from like overseas. They wanna book in their own time. I wasn't expecting my whole calendar to get booked. I was like, instantly, that shit got booked in like a couple hours. I was like, oh my God, like, do I regret doing this shit? But, it's been fun. I've been networking, I've been talking to people. Anyway, the number one question that I get the most is how do you start creating content? How do you get the ideas? How do you know you're ready to write content? Like, you're not, how do you know you have enough expertise to write on something? And yeah, and oh, I also get, what is content creation? Like, what it consists of. Let's start from there actually. So, what exactly is content creation? I have my little notes here. Hold on. So, what exactly is content creation? For me, in my experience and what I've seen so far in tech Twitter, it's mostly entertaining or educational content, a material that caters to a specific audience, in our case the tech community on tech Twitter. So yeah, that's why you see tech accounts only tweeting about tech. They might tweet different stuff like here and there, but it's mostly catered to the tech audience. And it can take many forms. Like for me, it was mostly blogging, articles, and doing micro content, micro-sized content on Twitter, but it could take many forms. I've seen people do TikTok, reels on Instagram, videos on YouTube. I even seen people write ebooks, a lot of them. But I don't know if you should write an ebook. They don't have a very good stigma around tech Twitter. Yeah. And today, since I get a lot of questions about content creation, I want to talk about, some tips to get you started, and what are some things you can do to, help you be successful in content creation. And, I honestly didn't think much about content creation, but I realized that I made like a whole career out of it, because originally I wanted to be like a developer, like just coding. I didn't know anything else in the tech field. I didn't know there other jobs existed even. I was ignorant as hell. But then, I realized after creating a couple of content and like, getting hired for like developer advocacy roles or like developer relations, I realized like, oh my gosh, you can make this your fucking career. Like how awesome is that? People do this shit for free on Twitter. They post on Twitter all the time. Look at Jack Forge. He freaking posts on Twitter like 10 times a day for free. And imagine you could get paid for it. That was crazy for me. Anyway, so I have my notes here, but I'm trying to not make my talk look so robotic, so I'm trying not to look at them that much. But I wrote some tips down. I wrote 8 tips, and the first one is write regularly. If you don't use it, you lose it. So, and what I mean write regularly, some people be asking me like, oh my god, do I have to write like a freaking blog article every day or like 3 times a week? You could if you want to get fucking burned out, but I never did that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to write an article every day. It could be, you could write a list of ideas or, shower thoughts. You could just write them down. It doesn't matter what it is. Just write everything down that, that pops up in your head. And I feel like doing this helps you recognize and, identify the possible ideas that can become like actual full thoughts or full recognized ideas later on, like for a full blog post. You're not gonna make an article about every single thing that pops up in your head, but it can eventually lead to a very good article. So, and you're also putting in practice about writing down your thoughts every day. And some things you may want to write about are like when you're forming your thoughts, like some things you want to think about, like what were you stuck on recently, what you didn't understand, what were you having trouble understanding. That was my main content creation issue. The question I was asking myself the most: what I didn't understand, what didn't I understand? And asking these types of questions to yourself makes you like introspect, like think about like what you really don't know. And asking this to yourself starts the flow of like writing and creating content, and solving problems that you have or that other people have. I feel like that's also one thing. I feel like content creation is also about helping other people and yourself. So asking those type of questions, can definitely get the ball rolling when it comes to like solving problems people have, the community has, as part of your job as a developer relations. There's also another thing this is point number 2 that is very important to when you're creating content, is to study your audience, to know your audience, to know what your niche is, what your audience is interested in, and what they need help with, what they're struggling with, all of that. And that's very hard. It's like market research. That's a whole fucking field out there. But you gotta more or less know who you're catering to, because then like, it also helps you because the needs of your audience can help with your creativity. It could help with, you know, creating like writing topics. And yeah, it's basically helping the community. What problems do they have that you can help with? And, that comes back to like the previous point, like it gets the ball rolling, asking questions. What kind of problems can you solve? Then your brain starts thinking about that and you start getting a lot of ideas of creating content. But know your audience. Yeah. You don't have to like know where they live. That's kind of creepy, but you do have to know like more or less, what they're interested in. Yeah. I feel that was a big one though, because like when I first started Twitter, I didn't have social media before that. I didn't know what I thought Twitter was a place for fighting, for fighting people. And I joined, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on. But I thought tech Twitter was like another tab, like a tab in Twitter. And I was like scrolling, seeing what people posted, and that I was like studying, what the community was and what it consisted of, what people were doing and saying. And that's how, I kind of started like my journey on Twitter. I was like studying people. I know Jack Forge was the first ones to pop up, and also Danny Thompson. Yeah, I was looking at their accounts and being like, oh, okay, this is what people tweet about, stuff like that. Yeah, another tip, I think it's number 3, if I'm not mistaken. You have to establish your unique voice, and you have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. This is probably the most important and the one I tell everyone. And I know Danny Thompson preaches this a lot, and I think that's one of the reasons actually Jack Forge grew and blew up, because he's very authentic and he puts his own spin to his tweets, and he has his own unique voice. It's not like every recycled tech Twitter content where people are like, oh, 10 fucking JavaScript bullshit. Like, everyone can share information, but like you gotta put your own spin to it. And why this is so important is because there's so many content creators in the industry. Everyone on tech Twitter is a content creation. Everyone can just start and be like, I'm gonna create content today. I'm gonna share information today. There's so many content creators in the industry, and you have to stand out. How do you stand out though? There's a number of things you can tweet about on tech Twitter. That's why everything's kind of recycled. That's why everyone's like doing the same jokes. There's a limited amount of things you can say, and that's true. I agree with that, but there's a way to stand out. And I tell people all the time that, and I still agree with this, I feel like a lot of people would agree with this, that readers or your followers click on your content for the information, for something they want to know or learn, but they stay for who you are. They stay for your personality. They stay for, your authentic self. Yeah, like, there's like, for example, there's everything on Google that you can, find. There's nothing you can't find on Google, basically. Everyone is creating content about similar things, about JavaScript, and everyone can spread information, but what makes that information unique to you? And how you do that is by offering personal stories or insights with that information. And you make that unique because that personal story and that insight you have is unique to you. Nobody else shares that same story like exactly the same, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, let's say you're writing about, I don't know, the importance of public and private keys. And, there's a lot of resources about that. I could Google something right now, public key versus private key, and get like a whole bunch of resources. But how do you stand out from that whole bunch of Google search? You don't have to just offer info about private keys and public keys, but also you can offer a personal story about how you spent, like, I don't know, thousands of dollars on minting an NFT because you sent it to the wrong public address or some shit like that. It's small if that makes any sense. It's small details that makes you stand out from the whole bunch that are writing about the same topic or talking about the same topic. That's what makes you unique, your own personal stories. And you might think, well, but who wants to hear about that? And that might be true, but that's what makes, a blog post, an article entertaining. And that's what makes you, more authentic to your audience and can maybe, hopefully not, help your audience resonate with you. Like, oh my gosh, I was fucking stupid. I mixed up my pub keys or some shit and sent it to the wrong address too. Stuff like that can happen. Yeah. If that made any sense. Yeah. You want to put your own personal spin to whatever content you're creating. Basically, because all content could be the same. But, your own personal story is where it's at. Yeah. Yeah. So, point number 4. Oh my gosh, this is my first time speaking at a conference, so I feel like I'm being really awkward and like going in circles. I apologize. But yeah. Point number 4, I think, is also very important. It kind of, helps you grow as a content creator and is engaging with other content, which is basically networking. So when I was just starting on Twitter, I was generally very interested on what people were doing because I wasn't on social media for like years. I didn't know what, the latest tech people were doing. I didn't know anything. So I was generally very interested in what other people were doing and writing about. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, oh my God, like I have to network because I'm going to be a content creator. No, it was more about like, okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I want to engage with other content and see what other content creators are doing so I can like learn from them. And, this might be, kind of like, oh, like I don't have time, like I don't want to do it, I'm lazy, blah, blah. And that's understandable. But, if you're creating content, you're already studying the industry. You might as well just read content from other people. Your whole job as a content creator is already like learning. You might as well just do it. And yeah, that's a way of learning what other content creators are making. And oh no, I just lost my train of thought. And one moment. And yeah, that's a way of learning. Oh my gosh, my man went blank. Okay. But yeah, that's a way of providing value and, getting value yourself because you're engaging with other content creators, seeing what they're doing and learning from them. There's always something new you want to learn. Like your whole career as a content creator is basically learning and sharing what you learned with people. And that's also a way of networking because, as long as it makes sense, you're always, for me, like I'm always welcome for feedback, and I'm sure other content creators are the same. Like, if you see something they wrote and you want to provide your insight, you can totally do it if it makes sense. Like don't go around mansplaining shit to people. But yeah, that's a way of networking or sharing your values with other people. and that's a way they can share their values with you. So yeah, it's also very fun talking to other content creators in a space. Like whenever I talk to them, it's not like a interview or very technical. It mostly just we branch out to like random talking about random shit. But yeah. And so tip number 5. And I'm still working on this. And I didn't know about this actually until a few weeks ago. Samina Codes told me about this, and I was like, oh wow, this would make my job way easier. But this tip is to understand KPIs, and different KPIs. So what is a KPI? I'm still learning about this, so give me feedback if you think it's necessary. It's like a metric you choose to measure how well your content is doing, like against what you expected. It's kind of like having goals, I think. This is my understanding, like for now. And some KPIs you have like could be like how, like for example, I have written down here like your social media traffic, like for example the number of visitors who see your content from social media posts and stuff like that. Because like your main goal as a content creator is, how do you get your content discovered? How do you make other people see your content? And just because your content doesn't have any views doesn't mean the content is bad. It just means that you haven't done the things that to help it grow. It doesn't mean your content ain't good. It's just you need more help with growing the traffic to your content. So KPIs help you, understanding your KPIs help you do that. Another example is like organic traffic, the number of visitors you get from, I don't know, searching on the search engine and shit like that. But yeah, I'm still learning about this one though. I thought it was interesting to add because I think it's necessary, especially if you're like developer relations, especially if you're doing this as your job. It's something that you want to report, and you really want to know like what your company expectations are, so you could do a better job at meeting their goals. And this is the last tip I want to talk about because we're kind of running out of time. I don't know how long this has to be, but I'm like 20 minutes in. Is the best way to create content is to offer solutions, not just commentary. Offer solutions, help people. Don't just state I don't know. Oh, I can't think of anything. But anyway, don't just state a certain, programming concept. Offer a solution to a problem. I also see myself as a problem solver because, I'm also DevRel at a small startup, and my main job is to find like problems people in the community are dealing with, or in our community or other communities, and think about how to help them, how to improve this, and how to get them to have a better experience. That's overall like the whole premise. But I think this is very important for content creators too. Like how can you provide value? How can you help people? And you do that by offering solutions, not just talking about a certain concept, because expertise isn't everything. You can't just like recite what you know. You gotta explain why it's important, and let your audience know why they should know this certain thing and how it helps them. Content creation is not just stating. That's why okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's why people in tech Twitter hate like as a developer tweets, or like 30 JavaScript, I don't know, links to go, because that's just reciting information that, you know, you already can look for in Google. I feel like that's why tech Twitter doesn't really like those tweets. But yeah, you gotta offer solutions, explain to people why it's important to know this certain thing. And, you know, linking back to sharing your own personal experience, you can shove that in there and be like, you know what, when I was learning JavaScript promises, I really didn't know what the fuck was going on. And, you know, I learned it because, you know, it was a very hard experience for me. And I feel like I know what people who don't get it are going through. So this is why I think learning this is important. Like, it's all circling back. Oh, wow, I just kind of realized that. Cool. Yeah. You offer solutions to problems. And when you explain to people why this is important, you could put on your personal story in it. Okay, cool. Yeah. Interesting. But okay. I hope that I don't know how to end a conference. Okay. I hope that, you know, it wasn't too awkward. It was my first talk. I try to be as cool as possible, but I was shaking inside. So I hope you learned a little bit about, you know, content creation. If you didn't, that's fine. I'm sorry for wasting your time, but thank you for tuning in, and thank you for having me in the Web3 Con. That's awesome. Bye.